It's Oasis, Wonderwall, and of course, we're going to be seeing England, Argentina, July 15th. It's going to be a match you cannot miss. And there's a very specific reason that I've played it for you just now because I have a special guest with me in studio. It's Matt Baugh, OBE, British High Commissioner to Kenya. Welcome. How are you doing today, Matt?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hoping this song got you really happy and excited.
Thank you for the intro. Absolutely wonderful to hear a bit of Oasis on a Monday morning.
I know, right? So, it's really exciting for us to have you with us here. This is your first media interview, I believe, since arriving in Kenya.
It is. Great to be here.
So we're honored to have you. And of course, like I said, Matt Baugh, OBE, he was appointed British High Commissioner to Kenya in April this year. And he was Director for the Migration and Conflict Issues at the FCDO until December 2025. Before this, he held the role of Director for Euro-Atlantic Security, responsible for NATO, OSCE policy, and security policy in the Euro-Atlantic area. I mean, I can go on. It's an impressive list. But, can you share some of your reflections? You've been in Kenya for the past few months. What's it been like?
Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful. And good morning, everybody. And thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be back. I've been coming to this brilliant country now for nearly 25 years, which is probably longer than I can really remember. My first posting was in Khartoum, 2002. And I used to come down to Nairobi and then meet the community here, move up to Lokichogio, get a flight, and move into South Sudan at the time. And then I had the opportunity to also open up our operation in Somalia in 2010 for the subsequent 3 years. And so I've kind of been coming in and out of this country and sometimes based in this country for, as I say, for a quarter of a century. It is wonderful to be back. It's a place I've been in, a place I've visited, a place I've lived in, and probably never quite left. So to have the opportunity and the privilege of doing this job, it's just wonderful, utterly wonderful.
Yeah, amazing. And in all your visits, what has given you most optimism about UK-Kenya relations?
Longevity, I think. Look, we have a profound, long, often difficult, we have to acknowledge that, a difficult history. But throughout it all, I think we have longevity, we have breadth, we also have depth. If I just look at the number of Kenyans visiting Kenya, the number of Brits, Kenyans visiting UK, Brits visiting Kenya, I mean, they're in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands in each direction every year. It's a living bridge. That, I think, gives me real optimism for the future, as well as, I think, just the inherent dynamism of this amazing country.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this month does mark 1 year since the UK-Kenya strategic partnership was signed in July 2025. How do you assess the progress that has occurred in the last 1 year or so? As you keep saying, of course, the relations have been so long, there's so much depth to it, and with this push as well going further.
So July 2025, President Ruto, Prime Minister Starmer signed this strategic partnership, first of its kind. I think, if we were honest, there were always going to be questions at that time as to whether this was just going to amount to a signature or whether it was going to be something more. And I think in the year since that signing of this new partnership, I think we've got real investment, real jobs, real momentum. Trade is up. Trade has now exceeded 340 billion shillings. That's over 2 billion sterling for the first time. We're employing, British firms here are employing 250,000 Kenyans. There's real depth and purpose and momentum to this in terms of the projects and endeavours that are underway, as well as the ambition, I think, that is woven through this partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. And, jobs growth critical here, of course, like you just mentioned as well. So how is UK investment in, let's say, digital, in manufacturing, in green energy, creating opportunities for Kenyan youth as well as, let's say, the SMEs?
Okay, so look, I mean, let's take it sort of chunk by chunk. Trade and investment, as I say, the numbers are up. Therefore, the employment figures are up. But I mean, as in practical terms, just since I've been here in the last 3 months, last month, we rang the bell at the Nairobi Security Exchange on a first of its kind infrastructure fund that is basically going to deliver infrastructure and the services that Kenyans rely on every day. Better infrastructure, better roads, better energy, better digital, the stuff that makes life happen. and it's the first of its kind. And that fund, first round will close at the end of this year, second round next year. It is going to grow and grow, but it's basically unlocking private capital for the stuff that the ordinary Kenyan citizens want in their everyday lives. We have a sort of massive showpiece project at Nairobi Railway City, modelled a little bit on the King's Cross regeneration in London. But that, I think, with about £150 million, I mean, that could generate thousands, 10,000 jobs, we believe, but also just the regeneration at the heart of this growing city. As I say, we've got 150 UK businesses invested here, employing 250,000 Kenyans. The partnership itself, we judge, could deliver well over another 100,000 direct and indirect jobs. I mean, this is real. This stuff really matters.
Tangible, yeah.
It's tangible. It's going to put, improve services. It's going to put money in people's pockets. It's going to hopefully, improve households and communities. It's also in the other direction as well. The economic partnership agreement that we've got allows for duty-free and quota-free access to UK markets for Kenyan exporters. That matters. There's an insatiable demand for Kenya's, quality produce, whether that's, the obvious in horticulture, coffee, tea, but also now brands. I mean, I have to do this because I just think it's an amazing story, but Spring Valley Coffee, well known here in Nairobi, but hits the streets in London. It cleans up at the London Coffee Awards, winning Best New Coffee House in London. It's got one branch. It's won the award already. I mean, but and if you're in London this summer, head to Camden Passage. A big shout out to Spring Valley Coffee. You'll find a piece of home in that bit of London. But there is now this movement between the two capitals, between the two countries, which I think is really profound. I think it's deeply exciting. Where we take this on, I think the stuff that will drive any economy, particularly on digital and tech. And again, some really exciting, incredibly innovative, world-leading businesses being built here on the back of the Kenyan digital and sort of tech backbone. Why? Because it's world-leading. Because basically businesses want to invest here because of what Kenya offers and the opportunity that it can provide. So I think it's a really, really exciting time, and really look forward to the next few years.
Amazing. And you mentioned that coffee brand as well. So for SMEs who are listening in, SME owners who are, trying to build up their capacity to a point where they can say, we export to the UK, we have that quality that is able to go abroad, to go beyond our borders. What would you say are some of the things they should really tap into when creating that kind of a product, or, even the story about their product, to be able to really ensure that it goes above and beyond?
So I think, Spring Valley is a sort of case in point, but it's a quality product, right? So having that quality produce, having that quality offer, being really clear about what that sort of brand story is, and I think Spring Valley can do it. It is Kenyan coffee of the highest quality, sort of delivered in a very Kenyan authentic style and manner. The coffee shop, including the one in London, are sort of Kenyan identified. So you're getting something different. You're getting a high quality product with a different story that's authentic, that's sincere, that tells you something else that you can't get in all of the other rest of the high street. I think there's also something about digital access. And again, we are working really hard across the SME sector to improve digital literacy, digital access for SMEs, for female-headed small businesses as well, and particularly also people with disabilities. And we're reaching, again, I think it's over 200,000 people and businesses just by improving that understanding of digital access. And that's where the digital trade agreement that we're beginning negotiations on, if we can get that through, if we can conclude those negotiations, that will provide a kind of, again, a world-class framing for access to a digital economy, which is where, again, there is such inherent strength here in Kenya as a sort of, as the Silicon Savannah, as the kind of digital ecosystem, not just for this region, but increasingly for this continent. And that puts Kenya really in the box seat for the sorts of future economies to come, and how Kenyan economies are going to be able to grow, scale, and really deliver value for their owners and indeed their employees.
That definitely paints a very positive picture, especially for SME owners who are thinking, well, this story of mine, make sure, this cultural undertones, weaving in the authenticity of the journey as well, in order to really touch the hearts of people, even across borders, who feel that story through the product. And, switching gears from business to security. So how are Kenya and the UK cooperating to address regional stability, let's say, even counter-terrorism and such?
So I think it's also, it's partly woven through sort of my story, sort of that I began with at the top of this interview. We've been doing this together, Kenya and the UK, for over 2 decades, working together on issues of regional stability and regional security. That's what, we were doing 25 years ago when I was in Khartoum, was, with Kenyan leadership, its hosting, its facilitation of the comprehensive peace process between Khartoum and the SPLM. How do we sort of bring about regional stability? Fast forward to my work in Somalia. Again, we've been working with Kenya as well as other countries in this region to tackle the scourge and the prevalent threat of terrorism now for over 2 decades. That maintains, that's enduring. We have an enduring security partnership with Kenya. Why? Partly because of the regional context in which it sits. Heavily, though, because it is the most proficient and the most professional security architecture in this region, and increasingly on this continent. And we see that, with the Kenyan contributions to regional security in Somalia, or indeed, more broadly internationally, including in Haiti. And so, again, the sort of security and stability element of this relationship, I really think sits at its heart, but it's extending now, it's evolving. We're talking to the Kenyan authorities about these new, more modern threats around AI safety and security, around cyber security, around tackling organized immigration crime, around border security, all of these facets that help Kenyan authorities secure Kenya for its citizens. And, we have been, I hope, an integral part of that story over decades, and we would want to be, and we would love to be, part of that story going forward. It's a privilege to work with the Kenyan security apparatus.
Amazing. And let's also jump onto the climate action aspect of things. When it comes to clean energy, when it comes to climate finance under the partnership, especially ahead of COP, what can you tell us?
So look, Kenya doesn't need any lessons on the challenges of climate change from anyone. It's living it every day, and we just have to look at what's happened this year alone. And my heart goes out to all of those communities either affected by the worsening drought through the north, but also the catastrophic floods that were experienced, particularly here in Nairobi in the past few months. That's climate change in real time. And so, look, the UK wants to do 2 things. Firstly, to help Kenya adapt to that climate change. We're already helping, 8,500 households across Kenya, some of the most vulnerable households in this country, basically adapt and become more resilient to climate change. That will continue. We want to mobilize, a big chunk of climate financing, 200 million sterling, to basically help Kenya adapt. But at the same time, it's also in energy diversification. So we're investing through a variety of instruments and funds in Kenya's kind of world-leading geothermal resource, right? In solar, in Malindi, and geothermal in Menengai. These matter for Kenya, but these also matter for Kenya's standing on the global stage. Kenya is a global leader in these issues, and in the articulation of these challenges, but also the opportunities. It's at the forefront, I think, of innovating and evolving to adapt its energy architecture. 90% of the grid is already based on renewable energy. How do we, as the UK, continue to help support Kenya down that path? Adapt, adjust, and modify to give itself and give its citizens the best possible place in a changing climate.
Right, absolutely. And it seems like we always focus on the fact that, yes, we already have so much in place when it comes to clean energy within this country. There are so many facets we can still explore. And I like that you mentioned that as well. So in terms of education, in terms of scholarship, how is this partnership strengthening things in that aspect too? Because we've obviously focused on a lot of granular topics in terms of what this partnership has brought.
So this is... I'm so glad you asked that. This has been one of the bits I've been really fascinated and excited about since I kind of returned, 12 weeks ago. So we have now, 700 alumni, I think, sort of scattered through Kenya. I think in every county, I think we've got an alumnus of one of our scholarship schemes. So 700 alumni on the scholarships that we provide. But more intrinsically than that, there is now this sort of knitting together of relationship between universities in the UK and universities here in Kenya. Just in the 12 weeks I've been here, we've had UCL, University College London, out here. I've done stuff for Oxford and Cambridge. We've had universities of King's College London, Manchester, the Christie Hospital in Manchester, a number of others, basically thinking about how do we now build an R&D, a research and development relationship with Kenyan institutions, with Kenyan students, in order to basically drive a research base, to drive a conversation, to drive a collaboration. That is incredibly exciting because, in effect, it's starting to work out how together do we train the next generation of engineers, of technologists, of lawyers, of health practitioners that are going to be the architects, the leaders, the key drivers of Kenya's future, of this region's future, and be, global citizens, if you like. I think that's really, really exciting. This burgeoning, growing, thickening of the university sector's relationship with each other. I was in Cambridge about 10 days ago with the Kenyan High Commissioner. Morris, if you're listening, hat tip, my friend. I hope you're well. We visited the Judge Business School together in Cambridge. It's a world-class business school. Yeah. But the conversation there was about, and that we had the pleasure of meeting some of their international students, including some students from Kenya. And this was so exciting. Just like, right, how do we link? Can we link Judge Business School with sort of business faculty here in Kenya? How do we get the world-class faculty at Judge? Can it do sort of advisory services to sort of problems here? How do we thicken the conversation and the relationship? And they're really up for it. And so, look, watch this space, we'll see what happens. But it's just another example of just as you get around the UK, I'm struck by the number of conversations I'm having with those institutions about what's happening here in Kenya.
And I think that exchange of information, like you mentioned, as it keeps growing and thickening, it could really impact so much in real time, especially through such educational institutions. And, you mentioned students out there. It's always nice, I think, when students are abroad, they find like a little piece of home. And it's usually the Kenyan bracelet that, triggers that, you're from the 254. So do you have you yet gotten your hands on one?
I do. I have one. Morris gave me one before I left. So I have it at home. I'm not wearing it this morning, but I do have one, and I hold on to it proudly.
Yeah, amazing.
My kids are eyeing it up, actually, going, "Can I have it?" And I keep stealing it back. So I'm going to hold on to this.
So now we know what to gift you next time we see you for the kids. And still, when it comes to the Kenyan diaspora in the UK as well, with the partnership, what kind of extensive support are we seeing being given to them too?
Well, I mean, they are. I mean, Morris is doing huge amounts of outreach across the diaspora. I mean, just look at his Insta feed. I mean, you can see what he's doing. I think the Kenyan diaspora, the Kenyan community in the UK, held a real place in the UK's fabric and in the UK's heart. We see that every day. As I say, whether that's in the 6,000 Kenyan students that are studying in the UK every year, the 100,000+ citizens that call the UK home. It's amazing. It's profound. It's as deep as it is broad, and it's woven across the UK. It's not just centred in London. It's in pretty much every major city of the UK. So England, Wales, Scotland, and indeed Northern Ireland.
Yeah, and speaking of not just Kenyans who are already there, even from here, the creative sector is booming, when it comes to the music, the film, tech talent. How can this kind of partnership also help them reach global audiences and beyond?
So, I mean, I just think of the British Council's UK-Kenya season over the last 12, 15 months. I mean, it's helped put that dynamic, creative sector, onto a world stage. Taking some of this to the Venice Biennale, putting some of this into the Bradford City of Culture agenda, just showcasing just the wealth of talent. I mean, one of the first things I did when I got here was to go and look at the pitch showcase for a crossover boy band of 4 artists, 4 performers, 2 Kenyan, 2 Brit. Basically, can we create a single boy band out of it?
Love it.
It was amazing. I really hope they come back. I really hope they get that kind of record deal, because the sound is cracking. It's incredibly, incredibly good. But I mean, that doesn't happen everywhere, right? That doesn't happen in every partnership. It happens in this one because of that breadth and depth, because of that weaving together of the connections that mean that actually opportunities like this aren't contrived, they're spontaneous, that they are driven out of choice because of the sound that you can create, because of the visual that you can create, because of the creative output that we can generate. And the British Council, I think, has been firmly at the heart of this now for years and years. And I have to pay credit to Tom, who's the director of the British Council, who's due to finish his posting here after many years, but the team of the British Council, who I think have just done an absolutely wonderful job.
Yeah, amazing. And even as we wrap up, if we look, let's say, 5 years ahead or even just a couple, what would success look like to you for the UK-Kenya strategic partnership?
So I think it is basically, look, I mean, Kenya is smart enough to know what it wants from its partners. I think it is positioning the UK as a partner that is dependable, reliable, predictable, and gets stuff done with Kenya, against Kenyan priorities, against the priorities that the Kenyan government and the Kenyan citizens need. And we'll articulate the specific goals on trade. We want to double it. On support to vulnerable households, particularly in the face of climate change, we want to grow that massively. On technology and innovation, as I say, how do we help diversify the energy grid? How do we help thicken Kenya's adaptation to climate change? All of that, the content that sits with it. But I think at a kind of an abiding, almost sort of emotional level, it's that dependability of this partnership. It has longevity on its side. It has depth of history. It has breadth of scale. I think what it now has is a really profound, palpable, renewed sense of ambition. Because Kenya matters. Kenya matters to this region. It matters intrinsically to the UK. And as we've seen just over the last few months, Kenya's voice matters on the international and global stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've talked so much about how the partnership touches various spheres, from climate to education to security and beyond. And one final, I would say, a bit of a rapid fire for you, Matt. Which Kenyan food that you've sampled has been your favorite? Is it the sukuma? Is it the chapati? Is it the ugali, the githeri? Which one is closer to your heart?
So I am So I'm a Brit, so the food we love most of all in life is curry and something spicy. So it has to be Swahili fish curry. It's got to be every time.
Okay, amazing. So thank you so much for joining us. That's Matt Baugh, OBE, British High Commissioner to Kenya. What a pleasure it has been hosting you. Any final words?
Come on, England.
All right, let's go.